Well, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendocha, Dr. Speed Selling, and you have stumbled upon, walked into, clicked on the Raging Verbalist. This is Raging Verbalist 129. Hard to believe when, and the Raging Verbalist, if you are just getting here for the first time, series of topical topics that I talk about, things that are on my mind. And of course, you can always go and join the conversation by going to the Facebook group for positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com, or I guess Facebook group is Position to Win Book. It isn't. There's no .com. Anyway, with me as always is the we're recording this stuff, and we just got to get is the person who stands in your space, the ever lovely Sandra. Sandra, welcome.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is one of those topics. It's a little bit of a sad day with our topic for today, and so we dive right into it. So Sandra, what is our topic today? What are we talking about?
All right, so we're talking about, well, in the graphic this week, it was retirement of the iPod, but I also have it labeled here, death of the iPod. So,
What's the difference? Well, we'll find out. I guess we'll get there.
That's right. So. That's right. All right. So, what is the significance of the Apple iPod?
So hard to believe, but 20 years ago, Steve Jobs introduced the iPod, and this was Apple's first real dive into consumer electronics. And Steve said, "Look, hey, I want to hit this bigger market. I want to hit music because it transcends barriers, which is, I think, was probably true then and true now. And the significance of it is that at the time there really wasn't a lot of great choices on what you could do to have your music. It now was very much focused on music, but we'll talk about other things that it did. So when you look at the iPod, the significance of it, I think, is that it really kind of broke a bunch of barriers in the fact that what his goal was is that you could have a device that was small enough to fit in a pocket that would hold 1,000 songs and last 10 hours. So that's quite amazing. At the time, the world had kind of gotten into portable music players, but the iPod was the first to kind of have those are the goals that Steve set out to do and be a really good, solid design.
All right. So was it the first portable music player?
Absolutely not. And it actually followed kind of a theme of what Steve Jobs would do. I mean, I think the guy was very innovative, but he was smart, in which he'd have these people blaze these trails and do all kinds of things that really weren't necessarily the best way to do it. And at the time, by the way, at his intro, he talked about the ways that you could solve this problem. At that point in time, we still had people walking around, by the way, with Sony Walkmans. You may have to go, look into the ancient archives of what one of those was. By that point in time, people had decided they were going to strap a CD player to their hip. I had one of those CD players. The problem is that even without, forget about jogging or biking or something, a CD will skip. If I just went, it was just skipped. So that started happening left and right, here and there, everywhere. So it was not the first portable music player, but what he was really looking for is how do we get a bunch of stuff onto one device.
And why do you think it was such a successful product?
Well, I think the big breakthrough, the thing that really pushed it over the top, was the fact that, first off, Steve was very dramatic. He launched it by saying you could put 1,000 songs in your pocket. And also, now it was very Apple centric, so it was still in that kind of eco zone, if you will. But what you could do is you could plug it in and you could load it up. The original ones had a plug which was called FireWire, which was actually owned by Apple. And you could download 1,000 songs in like 10 minutes, whereas all of the other ones which were using USB were like up to 5 hours to download if you could get the capacity. But I mean, 5 hours. Now, before I had an iPod, I had an Olympus player, was actually a recorder but also a player, And I have to tell you, you had to basically hope and pray that the songs got on there. And whatever you eventually got onto that little player, you were kind of stuck with because it was just too painful to change out your songs. So after about 3 or 4 plane trips, you were like, yeah, just not enough variety. So yeah, I think it was very successful because it was fast, it was compact, and you could change up your mix, if you will, pretty readily and do what you wanted to do. And that was, I think, really important.
So do you have any special memories of an iPod?
So, and when it first introduced and I saw how much Steve wanted for it, I went excitement, and then he said the price, and I said yikes, because I think it started out at $500 or something. So it's you really needed to want to listen to music. So, and after trying 2 or 3 other things, and then what I did was I kind of got onto the bandwagon, and he introduced like special editions. And by adding in a special edition, one of the things that he did, and I came prepared, of course, with props because I wanted to see if I could find these laying around my office, actually in desks. So I have a few props to show everybody. So this is actually a U2, that's U2, the group's special edition. And I actually ended up having to buy mine on eBay because it sold out. Apple really understood how to make people like go, God, I wish I had, but they sold out. And of course, the cool part is that we have all of everybody's signature. So on the back of it, and that's really cool. And this was a iPod special edition, and they did several of these, and then I think they went, well, okay, we don't need to spend that much energy and time. But that was a really good memory. And the other thing that was kind of cool about it is that when you had this kind of status one, right? Because this doesn't look like your average white one and everything, is that literally I would have this and I'd be playing with it on the airplane, and there was a cult of iPod in which people would walk up and go ooh and ah, and you got quasi celebrity status because of this, which I thought was pretty kind of cool. Which that's the other part that I think that Apple really understood from a positioning standpoint is if we make it so good that it's not just something you throw away, then away you go. And I had actually, gone to Europe with an MP3 CD player in which I carefully crafted these CDs and burned them and labeled them and did all that. And all I can tell you is yikes, that was a lot of work. So that was one of my memories. And then the other thing is that Steve kept raising the bar. Originally he said, we're just going to put music on it, that's it. And of course others were saying, well, what about putting photos on it? Well, no, I'm not going to put photos on it. And then Steve the next year would say photos. We'd all go, Arr. And then eventually he said, I'm never putting videos. Imagine that. I know for those of you out there, you might be, trying to rush for your safe space and everything because, think about a world where you couldn't have on-demand videos. So that led to my second, kind of show and tell this morning, which is this little Hummer here. So this baby has a 60 gig drive. That was the other thing that was kind of interesting is that he put ultra tiny little drives. But this thing has a 60 gig drive, little tiny baby screen, and you could then put videos on it. So you could watch really grainy, really tiny little videos, like so but at least it was something. We had something. So it was I know it was the Stone Age. It was an era when the Earth's crust had barely cooled, kind of thing. But that was really cool. And for somebody who had sold hard drives, who had sold disk subsystems, to give you a point of reference, because this thing cost me, I think, $600 or something, is that I had sold back in the day a 1 gigabyte, that's a single gigabyte drive on a single spindle. And that thing sold for $118,000. And I had 60 of those little babies in my hand. So there was a little wow, shucks thing going on for me at that point in time. Plus, I had the worst video you've ever seen. By the way, and if you want to talk about fun, fun for the whole family is I converted a whole bunch of movies to, I had to down code them or, reduce their resolution so it would fit on this thing. And, nothing is better than watching like Die Hard, one of my favorite movies. And, 160 by 160, I think is the resolution. And wow, you got to, it's crazy. So, and then I think the final one that I'll show everybody, where is it? It's a little tiny guy. Hang on, did I lose it? Oh, is that I bought this little guy. This was not the first generation. This was like the second generation of this little shuffle. And this thing I loved because this thing, again, would hold like 1,000 songs. By the way, Steve Jobs made every person who made the little tiny 1.inch hard drives really excited. They thought the world was going to be great. More and more hard drives. And then he went to flash memory. And this little guy was cool because I could literally clip it onto my collar and walk around with like 1,000 songs. So those are my memories, if you will, of this whole evolution. I couldn't find all of them because they're buried in various places, but there's that. Now, if you're out there and you're wondering, well, how could I have potentially a success? And if you think, well, 20 years, what's that? There wouldn't be an iPhone today if there wasn't an iPod then, and in my opinion, because he had the market condition to pay those prices. And besides which, yes, you could use your cell phone to do some kind of music playing. And I had, at the time, Microsoft had smartphones. There were 2 operating systems. Neither of them were compatible with each other. Good idea. And the other part of it is that I had one that would play some music. So I thought, wow, I'm going to be able to have this cool, phone and it does music also. No, I ended up going out and spending a big bunch of dough and carrying this because that it just didn't work. And that was a key factor. So if you want to find out about doing that, what you want to check out is you want to check out not my only book, but the other book, both books. And what you want to do is you want to go to positiontowinbook.com, because what you want to do is you want to be a spectacular success like this iPod became, because Microsoft, not to be undaunted, came out with their own version called a Zune, Z-U-N-E, probably because somebody said, well, hey, we got to come up with a name that we can trademark. Now, if you go out and you read, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Zune failed in the first 5 minutes. It just took them, a couple of years to realize it and a lot of money down the drain. Case in point, I'm not a colorist, meaning I don't study color, and I'm not one of those consultants because, I wish I was, because they get paid for what I think is bullshit. But anyway, Microsoft said, wouldn't it be cool to make this kind of device in brown? Now, they called it chocolate brown, except it looked like, well, a different kind of brown that a sick dog may have done something to your lawn. And it was a brown Zune. Yikes. Also, if you are doing remote work, which we are all doing some level of remote work, so check out that book, which is Remote Work for a Better World. And I was talking to somebody on the airplane just the other day and surprised to hear that some of the things that we put in that book a couple of years ago, which is available exclusively on Amazon, people aren't doing. So you should do that also. So there you go. There's that. All right. What else do we have?
All right. So how many iPods have you purchased?
I was trying to figure that out. Probably a dozen that I've purchased for myself. In fact, the last one I purchased was an iPod Touch, and I actually still use it at events because it would run apps. That was the other thing, is that started bumping into it was an iPhone without the phone type of thing. So I have that because it's a really cool timer type thing. It's probably about a dozen, but I used to give them out to clients and people who work for me. And it was, by the way, that was the other thing, is that when you drive something to the area of cultism, it becomes even a bigger deal when you give this out to somebody for graduations or, I mean, I don't know if we ever gave it as a wedding present. That'd be a little weird. But anyway, or whatever it was. But yeah, people became, kind of excited about it. So I bought a lot of them over the years. And, I never had anybody say, wow, that sucks. I got an iPod. Now I've ran into a lot of people who bought other things. I also have, the Hall of Shame box of dead MP3 players that just didn't quite make it. So there you go.
All right. So what was the beginning of the end of the iPod era?
My mind, the thing that really started killing the iPod is the fact that you could hold this up. Where is that? Called an iPhone. And when Apple really started shipping gazillions of iPhones, the reality is that you had the built-in music already. You're going to carry it anyway. You don't need to carry two devices. And more importantly, it all becomes integrated. And then the whole streaming thing became possible when phones were, and I don't want to shock anybody, so we should probably, put a big flashing sign, a little trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, is that when phones were only on 3G, the idea of doing any kind of streaming would mean that it would stop, start. Oh no, I get no, because whatever song that was that I was trying to sing, whatever you want to imagine it was, it probably was, because streaming wasn't possible. But also data caps were a serious thing. So once the iPhone and all the smartphones started getting better and the streaming services started to happen, then I think that was really the beginning of the end. There were still a lot of people who were buying them, especially, I mean, I don't know, like if you're going to go exercise or you're going to go walk in the woods, you're going to go do something, having a little device like this, which is like, not even 2 inches by 2 inches. I think it's like 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches squared. This thing is so light and so ridiculous. I mean, it's just amazing. And I still use it because there are times when I just, I don't have to worry about the little battery running out or any of that stuff. So, but the death was the phone. The phone was going to always kill it. And the other thing is that once you could get to streaming, yikes, that was the end.
So are you surprised that Apple's killing it off?
When I bought my iPod Touch like 4 or 5 years ago, and that's, by the way, that's the final one that's out there. I guess they've already sold out. So if you're watching this today and you want to rush out and buy one, I think Apple is sold out. Not sure if they are or not. I was surprised they didn't kill it off earlier. And they quit doing development. So when technology doesn't get development, it doesn't get refresh. And this is why, for any of you who want to believe in this whole technological push that we're going through, all technology, when it goes through these amazing levels of upgrades, is that other technology just fades away. And I was very surprised they were still selling these. But I was, I guess about a year ago, I was standing in an Apple store and a woman came in and bought an iPod for her daughter because she didn't want her daughter, who was 8, to have a phone, but wanted to be able to have music and songs and all that. By the way, I think that one of the big offshoots of an iPod, and of course that's where we get podcasting, is from iPod, is the fact that podcasting was, which is now of course amazingly huge, but when it started so many years ago, how are you going to get an hour of audio? Well, you download it through your computer and you stick it on an iPod and away you go. And that's where I started listening to podcasting. It's where I started getting involved in podcasting. And it was interesting because it was kind of this groundbreaking idea. Still to this day, there are things that I shake my head 20 years later that we have not done, which is I don't understand why almost everything isn't available in that kind of digital format, but it's, still it's not there.
What are the big and small lessons from the iPod?
I think the biggest lesson that comes out of it is that when a transformational technology arrives, and let's face it, a lot of things had to converge, and in some ways, those who are, haters got to hate. I don't know who said that, but maybe I should do a song. Maybe that would be a good song. What do you think? I mean, wouldn't I be a good pop song? Anyway,
There you go.
you know, but anyway, that to me the biggest thing was that a lot of technologies had to converge at the right time. Like an ultra thin hard drive had to show up so Steve could shove 1,000 songs, which was his goal. MP3, nobody even knew what an MP3 was. What happened to MP1 and MP2? I mean, and by the way, most people today, if you said, you can't listen to your tunes, your music, your whatever, unless you can, accurately describe what that means, they'd have no clue. But I think so that had to be in place. The hardware had to be in place. The battery technology had to be in place. And more importantly, somebody to put it together along with the software, because I think the hardware, especially like when we look at phones today, people kind of take the hardware for granted. And without hardware, you can't really host great software. You can't deploy great software. So to me, the big aha was technology comes together and it has a breakthrough and it changes forever. To me, this changes forever how we're ever going to consume audio, now video, now other things in a portable device. And more importantly, it should elevate the smarts of the world. We'll see, right? This is the same thing that was talked about with all these other technologies that have come along, but we'll see. So if you're out there and you want to do something for your life, go not listen to crazy, whatever stuff. Maybe you should be binging the Raging Verbalist or something. We should have the Raging Verbalist box set or something, but there's no box anymore. We'll ship you a digital box. Imagine, if you will, a box. Anyway, so I think the big lesson is that you have to have technology come together. The small lessons is that for so many people, even today, in business, they don't utilize the power of being able to record these things and do this stuff. I mean, whether it's from the consumption side, but also delivering messages to your customers, to your clientele, to your team. This is still an untapped area. Everyone thinks that it's all over, hey, I missed it. Everything is all wrapped up and done. I think that there's lots of direction to go, lots of things to do. And hopefully we'll see this continue to proliferate because there is so much more that we can do. And the other, probably the overarching, I don't know if you'd call it big or small, but maybe it's just the maximum thing that could happen, is that it has altered humans culturally forever, because MP3 players are everywhere and you can literally tap into any culture, any music, any spoken word. It just opens up the world, and that to me is a huge step forward. So as we wrap up, with sadness, and of course these were sitting in a drawer doing nothing, but the cool part is to remember how much we have changed as a whole world based upon this. So sad news that the iPod is now gone. We move on from there, and that is, of course, inexorably the march of technology. The fact that it lasted 20 years is kind of amazing. And this also points to the fact that everything that you see today that is your gee whiz wow technology, 20 years from now, where will it be? If you knew that, call, because then we could go make a ton of money, because it is hard to see the future, but I believe that it will be out there and there will be many things that will happen from there. And with that, this has been Raging Verbalist 129. I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. And for myself and the ever lovely Sandra, hopefully you've gotten some good insight on this. More importantly, if you do have an old iPod, dust it off, maybe get a little nostalgic, shed a tear or two, but understand that we are all going to a bigger and brighter future.